In the year 2342, humanity thought it had seen everything the galaxy had to offer. We'd charted nebulae, cataloged alien flora, and even shared a diplomatically awkward cup of tea with the Glarzonians. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared us for the discovery of the Cradles. It all started with a rogue signal, a faint, rhythmic pulse emanating from the uncharted darkness of the Oort cloud. Most dismissed it as cosmic background noise, a ghost in the machine. But Captain Eva Rostova of the deep space vessel Stargazer had a gut feeling. She diverted her ship, a move that would rewrite the future of our species. After weeks of careful navigation through a minefield of icy debris, they found it. A colossal crystalline structure, kilometers long, tumbling silently through the void. It wasn't a ship, not in any conventional sense. It was more like a geode, its exterior jagged and dark, but glowing with an internal ethereal blue light. As the Stargazer drew closer, its sensors went wild. The structure wasn't one object, but billions of smaller, interconnected pods, each about the size of a small car. These were the Cradles. Eva's first officer, Commander Jax, a man whose pragmatism was as sharp as his jawline, advised extreme caution. "Captain," he'd said, his voice tense over the comms, "we don't know what these are. They could be weapons, eggs, tombs, anything." But Eva's curiosity was a force of nature. She authorized a retrieval mission. A single cradle was carefully detached and brought aboard the Stargazer. Back in the biolab, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The cradle was smooth, almost organic to the touch, and cool despite the vacuum of space. And through its semi-translucent shell, they could see something inside. A silhouette. Dr. Arise Thorne, the ship's xenobiologist, a man who usually approached alien life with the giddy excitement of a kid on Christmas morning, was uncharacteristically silent. He initiated a non-invasive scan. The results that flickered onto the screen sent a shockwave through the crew. Inside the cradle was a child. A human child. Impossible. But the DNA scan was irrefutable. The child, a girl about 6 years old, was in a state of suspended animation, her vitals stable, her body perfectly preserved. Panic and confusion erupted on the bridge. Where did she come from? Who put her there? And the most chilling question of all, how many more were out there? Billions of pods meant billions of children. The discovery was relayed back to Earth, and humanity collectively lost its mind. The Cradles became the sole focus of every government, every scientist, every person on the planet. Theories flew faster than starships. Were they an ark? A desperate act by some long-dead civilization to save our species from a forgotten apocalypse? Were they a cosmic zoo, curated by an unknown godlike entity? Or something far more sinister? A farm? This is where the real story begins, the part that history books now call the Great Dilemma. You see, each cradle was a masterpiece of alien technology. It wasn't just a stasis pod. It was a life support system, a nutrient delivery machine, and a neural interface all in one. The children inside weren't just sleeping. They were learning. Their minds were being fed a constant stream of data, but it was information unlike anything we understood. Abstract concepts, alien mathematics, star charts of galaxies we'd never seen. The dilemma was this: do we wake them? On one side, you had the humanists, led by Eva Rostova herself. They argued that these were human children, stolen or lost, and they deserved a chance at a real life. To feel the sun on their skin, to laugh, to cry. To leave them in the cradles was to condemn them to a half-life, a dream from which they might never wake. It was a moral imperative to rescue them. On the other side were the preservationists, championed by Dr. Thorne. He argued that waking them could be a death sentence. Their bodies might not be able to handle a normal environment. More importantly, what about their minds? They had spent their entire existence in a simulated reality, absorbing knowledge beyond our comprehension. Ripping them out of that world could cause catastrophic psychological damage. Thorne believed the Cradles weren't prisons. They were wombs nurturing a new kind of humanity. To interfere was to play God, with lives that were no longer entirely ours to control. The debate raged for months. The Stargazer and a fleet of other ships stood vigil by the crystalline structure, a silent standoff between two opposing philosophies. Meanwhile, the children slept on, oblivious. The decision was finally forced by an unexpected development. One of the cradles aboard the Stargazer began to fail. The blue light flickered, and the child's vitals inside started to drop. There was no time left for debate. It was either open the pod or watch the child die. Eva gave the order. Open it. The lab was prepped like an operating theater. Dr. Thorne and his team worked with a frantic, focused energy. With a soft kiss, the cradle peeled open like a flower. The air filled with the scent of ozone and something else, something sweet and alien. Inside, curled in the fetal position, was the little girl. They carefully lifted her out and placed her on a biobed. She was pale and thin, but she was breathing. Slowly, her eyelids fluttered open. Her eyes were the deepest blue, and they seemed to hold the light of distant stars. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked around, taking in the world with a profound, unnerving calm. Her name was Aara. She didn't speak, not with her voice anyway. But when Dr. Thorne reached out a hand to comfort her, a torrent of images and feelings flooded his mind. He saw galaxies being born. He felt the pull of gravity from a black hole. He understood the complex, beautiful language of light itself. He stumbled back, gasping, his own mind reeling from the sheer volume of information. Aara was not just a child. She was more. The Cradles had been educating them, preparing them for something. They were conduits to a universal consciousness, a network of knowledge that spanned the cosmos. This changed everything. The children weren't just victims to be rescued. They were ambassadors from a reality we couldn't fathom. Waking them up wasn't just a medical procedure. It was an act of translation. A new project was born, Project Chimera. The goal was no longer just to open the pods, but to create a bridge between their world and ours. They built specialized environments, rooms where light, sound, and even gravity could be manipulated to mimic the sensory input of the Cradles. Psychologists, linguists, and physicists worked alongside xenobiologists to learn how to communicate. Eva Rostova oversaw the entire operation. She was the first to hold Ilara's hand without flinching from the data stream. She learned to see the patterns, to understand the emotional context behind the cosmic data. She learned that the children weren't emotionless. They felt a deep sense of connection, of peace, and a profound curiosity about us, their ancestors. One by one, they began to wake more children. Each one was a unique miracle. There was Kale, who could map stellar drift with his mind, and Lyra, who expressed herself through complex, harmonic frequencies that resonated with the ship's hull. They were different, yes. Alien, in a way. But they were also just children. They learned to laugh. They learned what a hug was. Ilara's first spoken word, whispered to Eva a year after her awakening, was Star. We learned the truth about the Cradles. They weren't an ark or a zoo. They were a gift. A gift from a hyper-advanced, benevolent species that had observed our potential and our flaws. They saw our drive, our art, our love, but also our capacity for self-destruction. The Cradles were their attempt to give us a boost, to elevate our consciousness and guide us toward a more enlightened future, not as conquerors of the galaxy, but as partners. The children, the Starborn as they came to be called, became our teachers. They helped us develop new technologies, FTL drives that bent space-time in ways we'd only dreamed of. They taught us to see the universe not as a dark, empty void, but as a living, breathing entity full of interconnected life. The moral dilemma was never truly solved. Some still argue that we stole their celestial birthright, but most see it as a rescue, not just of the children, but of ourselves. Eva Rostova, in her final log entry before retiring, put it best. "We went looking for aliens in the dark," she said, her voice filled with a quiet wonder. "We were afraid of monsters, but instead we found our children. And they brought the stars home to us." The story of the Starborn is a reminder that the greatest discoveries aren't always found in distant galaxies, but sometimes in the courage to open our minds to face the unknown not with fear, but with empathy, and to reach out a hand, even into the deepest darkness. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the cosmos, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the great beyond. Let me know in the comments what you would have done in this situation. Until next time, stay curious.